Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about one of the saws that's lived in my stable for probably longer than any other saw, and it's the MSE 210C. Now this is a really neat saw. I guess I'm getting right into the review. This saw has been very powerful, and I think one of the things that most people think about when they consider buying a saw is the output, the power of the saw. How is it going to handle through thick timber? How is it going to handle when cutting? Is it going to bog down? Especially with an electric saw where it's a given you're not going to see the same amount of power that you would otherwise see in a gas saw. For instance, my 261C is going to have worlds more power than this thing has. But the beauty of the electric saw, of course, is the quietness of it. I live in a neighborhood where my neighbors are less than 20 feet away from me, and using a loud, powerful chainsaw all day is a huge, just not very polite. So I try to avoid that, and I use the electric saw when I can. What I have on it now is the Rollermatic E. This is the mini bar, and so typically you're not going to be doing a lot of heavy cutting with this. I use this for shaping smaller carvings, for roughing in smaller carvings, but a lot of detailing of some of the larger ones. So I have the green chain on this. The green chain is a low kickback chain that Stihl makes, so it's not going to cut quite as quickly. But again, because I'm using it for smaller projects or for refining details, that's okay. If I do need to block in a large piece, a large sculpture, say something like this, which isn't particularly large, but I mean, it's a little bit larger than life size, I'm going to use my 261C, or I'm going to use a gas saw. Now, you could use an electric saw. Bruno Wolpath, an amazing Italian sculptor, uses this saw for roughing in. I've seen in some of his videos. So that's a possibility for sure. But it's really quiet. In fact, I'll just show you. Don't you hate when this happens? Oh boy. Now let me just say, when I say this saw is quiet, I'm comparing it to a gas saw. That does not mean that it's particularly quiet compared to a hand tool, obviously, right? So you're going to want to wear ear protection when you're using a saw like this. In fact, I always wear ear protection because I like to listen to music when I'm carving, or podcasts, or books, or whatever. But the thing about it is, it's very convenient to not have to deal with gas. Obviously, you're loading your oil in at this top cap here, and there's a nice little reservoir receiving your oil, but it's nice to only have one thing to worry about when it comes to maintaining your saw, as in pouring in liquids, right? Other than that, obviously maintaining a sharp blade, very important, all that stuff. The usual things you'd have to deal with on a chainsaw, still there. One thing I really like about this, and I'm forgetting the term, but these pokey things here, it's embarrassing. These tines dig into the wood, and they will help to give you some leverage when you're carving into a larger piece of wood. And since this is a more expensive saw, I mean, this thing is no small purchase. It's $250 at the time of reviewing this video. It has the steel tines that dig into the wood a little bit more effectively than the plastic ones do, a lot more effectively, actually. So that's nice. Another really good feature of this, and I think it's what I mentioned earlier about power, is that it has a lot of power for an electric saw. Now, is it the most powerful electric plug-in saw that I've ever used? This is not quite even. No, it's actually not. I have a Makita that's actually a little bit cheaper of a saw. You can buy this, I don't know if you can still buy them used, but this is the 5012B, and I would say this saw, you can see here it's slightly smaller in profile and form, is actually a little bit more powerful. Although when you carve all day with a saw like this, it feels like moving to this saw, the Stihl saw, is a Cadillac compared to, I don't know, an old beat up Honda Accord. It's not comfortable to use long term, although it's very powerful. So if I have some quick work needing to be done, I will use the 5012B. As you can see, it doesn't have a chain on it. But the MSE 210C is a lot more refined. I do think that if you're going to use a saw every day, day in and day out, as a chainsaw carver, or as someone who's even a hobbyist trying to kind of dip their toes into carving with a chainsaw, it is nice to use a saw of this quality. The dampening of the or the shake of dampening rather, is really nice. So it's comfortable to use. It's not super duper loud, and I mean, I don't know what else you could want in a saw. It's been durable. I've had this thing. I've used it pretty regularly for 6 years. It's held up well. It needs a good cleaning, but it's a great little saw. You could run a full bullnose bar or a carving bar on this saw as well, and that would be fine. I mean, I've used a bullnose. I think I've had a 12-inch or probably 14-inch blade on this for most of its life, but switched to the detail blade in the last 5 or 6 years, or I'm sorry, last 3 or 4 years. But I definitely prefer having the detail blade on here. It's not quite a dime tip, it's more like a quarter tip, but it is nice to use on detailing again for refining shapes and getting textures, and I use this saw a whole lot. So that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you will check this saw out. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't care if you do or don't. I think it's a go. I think they could have made this saw just a little bit more powerful. So I guess I should go to the cons because I mostly talked about pros for the entire video. The cons of this saw is I do think it could be a little bit more powerful. I would like for it to be stronger than the competitor saws like the 5012B and some of the other makers out there. Although it is plenty powerful enough, it's very rare that it like binds up or it gets caught or slows down. So it is powerful enough, and this is Stihl's most powerful chainsaw, so electrically, like a plug-in wise. But you know, comparing this to a battery saw, this is a no-brainer for me. The plug-in saws are a lot more powerful, although I do intend on investing in a battery Stihl in the future. I've used one a great number of times. It is a really nice tool to not have the cord attached to you. But as far as daily and in-studio use, I would probably rather have a plug-in than a cordless saw. So that's just me. A lot of people don't like the hassle of having this thing to drag around, but those are my thoughts. So I've enjoyed this saw. I mean, like I said, I can't see any serious cons other than I'd like to see a little bit more power. I really like the braking feature where if you let off the gas, if you will, the saw blade almost immediately stops. So that prevents you from bumping into it. In fact, the one time I've cut myself on a chainsaw was from a saw that was winding down, and as I set it down, I bumped my finger on it and it actually cut, and my finger actually, it was this tool here. It was a Makita angle grinder with a cutting head on it with I think they call that a lance a lot, but it's just a chainsaw disc, and those are very dangerous. But on that wind down, it's very easy to kind of be off guard and bump the saw blade while it's still moving and hurt yourself. So that said, this is not a problem with this saw, and I do appreciate that. So it consumes oil about like a normal saw. You know, you can rely on that. Sometimes it gets a little dirty and it needs to be cleaned. A lot of times, if the components are full of wood shavings, you're not going to get a normal flow of oil to the bar and chain. So you need to make sure and clean that. And I'm preaching to the choir here because mine's starting to get dirty. I need to blow it out. But yeah, with good maintenance, MSE 210C is a good saw. I recommend it for those of you trying to go for a big boy electric saw. So, all right, guys, see you in the next one. Take your vitamins.